Well, let's take a check on the team news, starting with the Wanderers. 4 changes in all. Patrick Ziegler returns from suspension in place of Tas Mordakutis in defence. Keanu Backus replaces the suspended Pierman Schwiegler in midfield. Daniel Georgievski slots back into the left wing-back role after serving his own ban. And with Nikolai Muller out with hamstring tightness, Kwame Yeboah will make his first start since early February. Now, just the one change for Sydney FC in contrast. Alexander Baum-Johann is back in place of Anthony Caceres, who has a groin injury, to face his former club. And if Baum-Johann scores tonight, he'll become the first in derby history to net for both Sydney teams in this fixture. Michael Zullo and Chris Zavella are back on the bench, both after long stints out with injury. Well, Mitch Duke, of course, scored the winning goal in both this season's derbies. He has 11 for the campaign for the Red and Black, and he is chasing down Oriol Riera's club seasonal records of 15. Missed out last time out against Melbourne City after scoring in 5 consecutive matches. And talking of goals, maybe Costa Barbarouses might be the man for Sydney FC. Scored 5 times in Melbourne derbies. If he scores tonight, he'll become just the second player in history after Dario Vidosic to score in both the Sydney and Melbourne versions of these derbies. And you can say the same thing for 1 or 2 others tonight. We'll keep you posted on all those facts and figures throughout the next 90 minutes. Our referee, talking to Melbourne, is Melbourne's Sean Evans. Just the second time he's taken charge of this particular fixture. And we are all set to go at Bankwest on a mild evening. 1 or 2 spots of rain around. And back in October, there were 28,500 people here. The second derby in February was washed out by rain after a bushfire season that tested the whole country. 3 derbies, Robbie Slater, with 3 very different feels to them. But a derby is a derby, and there's plenty at stake tonight.
Well, there certainly is, and Sydney FC don't want it to happen for the first time, where the Wanderers or one of the teams get a clean sweep, and that's what they're up against. It's sort of eerie, isn't it, to think not only what's happening tonight, but what happened in the other 2 derbies, where same scoreline, same goal scorer. Absolutely extraordinary. So, you know, so much to play for. Of course, Sydney FC closing in on the Premier's plate. They want to get that done as quick as possible.
Well, let's see who makes the more aggressive start. Mitch Duke trying to fire it across towards Tate Russell, but there was a late challenge on the Wanderers skipper, and a sharp blast on the whistle from Sean Evans gives the home side a free kick. And Mitch Duke clearly felt that. Ryan McGowan leaving an early marker on probably the man he's going to mark for much of the next 90 minutes. Sydney FC have conceded goals from 3 free kicks this season. That's the most of any club. So let's see if the Wanderers have a trick or 2 up their sleeve. Andrew Redmayne on red alert despite wearing pink. And that should be Redmayne's, and is quite comfortably in the end. Interesting to hear your remarks pre-game, Robbie, when you were sitting in the stand about the noise on the pitch, and already we're hearing that. It is quite eerie, isn't it?
It is, and you know, we heard it last night at Brisbane, Newcastle, but because of the way this stadium is built, it's so much more evident.
Normally would be a cauldron of noise, of course, on Derby Day. But we all know the reasons why. And a big TV audience watching both in Australia and overseas. 25 million homes in Italy taking this game live. We send our friends in Italy our best wishes, a nation that's really doing it tough due to the coronavirus at the moment. Here's Kwame Yeboah darting into the penalty area, but Joel King was in the way. And Yeboah will let it roll behind for the game's first corner.
Yeah, got himself in a good position. That's where he wants to find himself. You know, try and get in between the lines, and he was quite happy to let it roll out for a corner, but 2 defenders did the job on it. And Wanderers very early, but with all the early pressure.
And it's going to be Jordan O'Doherty, who's making his 50th A-League appearance tonight. to take the corner. Matt Yerman and Patrick Ziegler looking to make their move. There's a bit of holding going on involving Yerman and McGowan. Sean Evans has got his eye on that. Jordan O'Doherty floats it far too close to Redmayne.
Yeah, it's a poor corner, and the importance, you know, early on when you set pieces to get quality into the box.
Sydney yet to really settle. Bam Johan trying to do that for them. Run out of it on the halfway. No suggestion of a foul. And here's Patrick Ziegler, who sat out the 1-1 draw against Melbourne City last week after accruing 5 yellow cards. Simon Cox, who playing a slightly different role potentially tonight. He was listed as playing just in behind the strikers. Looks as though Kwame Yeboah is playing more of that role.
Yeah, it looks like it's 2 up front with just the number 10, Yeboah, sitting right behind.
And maybe that's an early indicator that they've not quite worked it out well enough on the training ground. Yeboah taking it off the toe of Duke.
Well, Yeboah's going to try and find that space. So Mitchell, Duke and Simon Cox have got to stay as far forward, right on their centre halves as much as possible to allow that space to develop.
Let's go down to Adam Peacock, who's pitch side for us tonight. Evening, Adam. I won't say soaking up the atmosphere because there isn't much.
I'm just soaking up the yelling as Sean Evans gives a free kick to Milos Ninkovic. And just on Sean Evans, who had a delayed entrance to the venue along with Owen Goldrick, who's on the near side line. They said when they got here that they were asked, have you been outside the country in the last 14 days? They said, well, actually, yeah, 10 days ago we got back from overseas duties on the AFC Cup, but everything was above board. They were allowed in, but because it was before the quarantine or the quarantine period set down by the government last Sunday. But little scary. Actually started his warm-up on the concourse out the front, Sean Evans, but here he is now.
Love it. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, we all had to answer those questions. Have you been overseas? And the North Shore of Sydney doesn't count, Robbie.
I do have to go across the bridge.
That's true. Here's Ryan Grant, playing in his 18th Sydney derby tonight. That's more than any other Sky Blue in history. There he is. Looks as though the mullet might have had just a little trim, especially for the big occasion. Bratton has lost most of his locks, of course, for a very good cause. Lovely 1-2 involving Grant and Bam Johan. That's sorted out by the Wanderers. And here's Tate Russell, who got his first A-League goal last week in his 21st A-League match against Melbourne City. Beautiful finish it was too. Real team goal by the Wanderers. And they're building nicely here. Yeboah. And there's room on the left for Daniel Georgievski. Cox and Duke wait beyond him. Ryan Grant gets a foot in. Referee Sean Evans got an inadvertent touch, so the whistle will go. Under the new rules, any touch off the ref, the game has to stop. Doesn't stop the players from disputing it, though. Free drop for Sydney. Got a nice aggressive start by the Wanderers, as demanded, no doubt, from John Paul de Marini.
They're pressing very, very high, so they're trying not to allow Sydney to get the balls into the feet of Bomyahan and Ninkovic. Don't want to see them comfortable on the ball, able to turn, and of course we know what sort of service they can provide for the speedy Barbarouses and Lafondra.
Bratton shut down very quickly and very effectively in midfield by O'Doherty. And this is Cox, and the Wanderers moving the ball quickly. It's Kwame Yeboah, but use of the arm will bring them back.
Nice sharp move though, and a shame that that ball just bobbled and hit his arm, because it looked like the next touch he was going to have would have been a strike at goal. Ball here from Cox, and the first touch just didn't cushion it enough, and it pops up onto his arm quite clearly.
Kwame Yeboah clearly eager to make a mark tonight. He's sort of been odd man out, hasn't he, since the arrival of Simon Cox. Nikolai Muller's hamstring tightness tonight reopens the door for him. Here's Ryan Grant, cleverly manoeuvring away from two Western Sydney Wanderers players. Swept out by Wilkinson towards Joel King. straight at Ziegler. Talking of overseas viewers, as we were a few minutes ago, with all those millions potentially watching in Italy. Also a shout out to Radoslav Majewski, who's watching the game live in his homeland of Poland today. A-League goes right around the world. That's going to get away from Georgievski. Majewski was due back in Australia to complete his rehabilitation after that knee injury, but of course under the current restrictions cannot travel. So I hope you're going well, Ruddy. Look forward to maybe seeing you back here next season. Bratton really with nowhere to go, and another example of that early high press that the Wanderers are employing to good effect. Sydney FC on a run of 4 consecutive away victories. They are unbeaten in the last 7 on the road since they lost here last October by the only goal. Ninkovic harassed into an error, and they're going to go for goal here through Keanu Bacchus. Not quite on target, but the Wanderers continuing on the front foot.
You made the decision to take it on, and it was a little inside run from Yeboah. And Yeboah took off there. He's the one that lays it into Bacchus, and if he had a little reverse ball, you see the run right through the middle from Yeboah. I don't think he saw him though. Maybe he did, because he acknowledges the run.
He doesn't score too many goals. Keanu Bacchus, just 4 in 55 games. Back in tonight after his own injury concerns. I can tell you his brother Kieran, former Western Sydney Wanderer and Melbourne City midfielder, played in his own derby a couple of weeks ago in his new club in South Africa, the Soweto derby, and he won. The Orlando Pirates and the Kaiser Chiefs. Here's Ninkovic. King. Turned back under pressure from Cox by Luke Bratton.
And you see Cox, as soon as he does that press, he slides across to the left-hand side. You see Georgievski pushing up there, so that they've really come out with the intention of not allowing Sydney FC to play out from the back. And there's no doubt they've made the better start in this game.
Simon Cox, the guilty party last week, of course. That's a glaring miss against Melbourne City that probably would have given them all 3 points at Amy Park. Although we should credit Curtis Good for an extraordinary retrieval.
And just off the pace, LaFondra with a simple ball to King and played it way behind him, giving possession away. So Sydney are certainly unsettled.
Steady down by Rattray. Bratton for Baum-Johann and back. King. Take Rossell in the way. Now Ninkovic with a little bit of room to turn and fire it out in front of Costa Barbarouses. Final touch off McGowan, and Sydney have their first corner. And it's taken them a while, Robbie, to get this far upfield.
Yep. It's a good challenge from McGowan. Barbarouses is so dangerous in those kind of situations. You watch here, Alex Wilkinson coming up, McGowan, the obvious big men coming in.
Yeah, McGowan at the back post. Ryan Grant at the near. It was Matt Yerman who climbed highest. Steered back out towards Baum-Johann by Bratton. Georgievski on the end of the German's cross. And Sydney will reset through Alex Wilkinson here, their captain. Baum-Johann. A little bit of space here for Rattray. Gets the return off Barbarouses.
Yeah, Sydney are going to have to be quicker. He got the time. The Wanderers are not giving him that time. Bacchus with that challenge on Bomyahan as he sort of checked off but didn't check off at pace. And you just wonder with John Paul Mourinho's doing this, in how long are they going to use the high press, because it does take a lot of energy out of you.
At some points, those territorial stats will drop. And that's where Sydney, of course, are so good at making their move. And they're in good position here. Bratton, what a ball for Grant. And he just couldn't quite wrap his boot around it, but what a release from Luke Bratton.
Super ball from Bratton, and Ryan Grant just lost his feet. He just tripped as he was, I'm pretty sure he's trying to slide that across the face of goal. Probably should have taken a touch. They opened it up well. Bratton sees the run of Ryan Grant. He's clearly onside, and there he's trying to play it across first time, and he's falling as he hits it.
Oh, super ball, showing the sort of range of vision that Luke Bratton possesses. That's why he's become such an important part of Sydney FC's lineup. Just signed a 2-year extension to his contract. Good climb by Lafondra, chested down by Ninkovic. And Sydney enjoying a bit of territory now. Lafondra trying to curl it straight at Lopar in the end, but it's been a good response from the Sky Blues.
Yeah, and you can see what he's thinking there. Just makes that half a yard, and he's gone for the right top-hand corner and hit it straight. Comfortable save for Lopar.
Adam Lafondra, of course, who's seen Jamie McLaren steal a march at the top of the Golden Boot standings after his hat-trick against the Mariners last night, eager to get back within range. He has 16 for the campaign, McLaren now 18. This is Matt Yerman. Rather telegraphed that one straight at Bratton, and Baum Johan will gallop into that open space between the lines. Still going the German. And Lafondra closed down by Ziegler, and then Lopar plucked it out of the air and was felled by the Englishman.
Yeah, it's the first touch from Lafondra. The burst from Bomyahan right through the middle. He did have an option on his right-hand side, and see that first touch just a little bit too far in front of him and allows Ziegler to make the tackle, and then clearly a foul on the goalkeeper. But Sydney certainly improving in the last 4 or 5 minutes.
There's those Golden Boot standings. And Lafondra's record on the road this season is extraordinary. 9 goals in 9 away matches. Although intriguingly, he's only ever scored the 1 goal in 5 games against the Wanderers. That one is in his very first match against them at the Sydney Cricket Ground early on last season. Here's Mitch Duke. Not quite Ronaldo-esque with the back heel. Georgievski. Good release by Bratton under real pressure as well.
Yeah, Bratton's the one leading it. Sydney's good 5 or 6 minutes now has come largely through him, taking a little bit of command in the middle of the park.
Grant and Barbarouses with room to turn. Lafondra wouldn't quite stick for him. Bratton charging through. Out it goes off Yerman. Now he's having a good season, isn't he, Luke Bratton? All the more remarkable when you consider personal circumstances he's living through at the moment with his sister, which has been well documented in the Sydney media. Here's Ryan McGowan up against his brother, of course, again tonight, Dylan, on the opposite side of the field. Oh, Ninkovic, a rare poor touch from him. And Mitch Duke didn't need a second invitation.
Yeah, in that kind of area, that's what you don't want. Ninkovic so sure on the ball. You can even, circumstance, he's the type of player you can give the ball to when he's under pressure, but in that kind of area. And he got away with that one with Mitchell Duke taking the shot opportunity.
McGowan to carry it forward, just trying to slip it through that little lane of space there towards Barbarouses, but Keanu Bacchus read it superbly. And here's Tate Russell on the right for the Wanderers, being pursued by Ninkovic. Dylan McGowan. Yeoman, who of course spent 2 spells, Matt Yeoman, with Sydney FC, nearly 100 games in the sky blue of Sydney. Now very much a Western Sydney Wanderer. Jordan O'Doherty. Not much room for manoeuvre in there. Now Bam Johan doesn't have a lot of help. And sheer weight of numbers prevails for the Wanderers. First time ball by Georgievski's a good one. Here's Mitch Duke. Simon Cox, top of the box. And Kwame Yeboah. And it did take a touch on the way through. It's going to be a corner for the Wanderers.
Yeah, good little patch of play. Once they dispossessed Bomberhan, they had an overload on the left-hand side, and Yeboah with a sharp turn. Difficult to swivel and hit that one. Takes a deflection for the corner.
Looks as though he's just jarred his hand or one of his fingers as well. Kwame Yeboah.
Coach, have your head back in.
So Jordan O'Doherty again. Better delivery this time. Up in the air it goes off Joel King. Keanu Bacchus couldn't control it. And now Barbarouses, and the counter is very much on for Sydney FC. Wanderers retreating in numbers. Barbarouses threads it through. Nobody's tracked the run of Lafondra. It's Adam Lafondra. And he couldn't get the purchase required.
Yeah, just a bit off song. Straight through the middle. He had plenty of time, and his first touch again let him down. He's really got stuck between his feet. Wonderful chance. Great vision from Barbarouses. They all thought the ball was going to be played out to Grant. Lafondra checked his run completely unmarked through the middle and couldn't finish.
Pitch was, of course, heavily watered pre-game. You can just see the ball holding up a little bit as it travels along the floor. I wonder whether that had something to do with Lafondra's rather tame finish. Or maybe I'm just being a bit too kind to him.
You are. I think the power was taken off shot, because I think the Wanderers defender actually got the block in.
Here's Duke. Really good header by Georgievski, who continues his own run and ferries it inside towards Yeboah. He'll use the angle for Mitch Duke, who's onside. The Wanderers building nicely, and eventually it goes behind for another corner off Luke Bratton.
Here's the ball through for Lafondra, and see that first touch. And it's in fact the second one just takes it away, so he can't really get back lift on his strike.
So Jordan O'Doherty with the latest corner, this time from the far side, to the backdrop of empty stands. And he floats it towards Keanu Bacchus, who did catch it flush. But the block made by Alex Wilkinson, who's now limping a little bit on the back of that. Now Bam Johan, as Sydney try to get out. Bit of a risky ball by Retre. And Ryan Grant was composed enough to deal with the pressure. Little spin by Bratton to open up the space for Grant. Now Ninkovic. Retre had to go first time.
Gave it back to him. They lost the ball there, Sydney. Wanderers got numbers behind now.
Sydney FC not quite in their usual groove. Now the decision's gone against the Wanderers.
Thought they both
which
went
Dylan
in.
McGowan can't quite believe. It did look a 50-50 ball. The replay may tell us a different story.
Yeah, for me, first glance, I thought they both went for that ball, as you said, like a 50-50, and didn't see too much in it. All right. Ninkovic having gets there first, and then the follow-through makes the referee's mind up.
Yeah, the trailing leg of Dylan McGowan. Catching the eye of Sean Evans. Ends in a handshake. Or a fist bump, as it should be these days. And a free kick for Sydney, which Alexander Baum-Johan will take. A couple of Sydney FC players in offside positions as that was taken. It's cleared by McGowan. Ninkovic to reset. Baum-Johan. Bratton still plenty forward for Sydney FC.
Yeah, McGowan stayed forward.
They work it out for Grant. And an easy take for Daniel Lopar. Back down to Adam Peacock.
Thanks, Simon. Steve Corican not happy about that challenge from McGowan, begging Stephen Lucas, the fourth official, for a yellow card as Simon Cox regathers.
Continue, Adam.
And then unregathers. And just on Kawami Aboa, keeping a close eye on him. When he had that shot about 3 or 4 minutes ago, he went straight for his right upper thigh groin area. He's not completely comfortable at the moment, but he hasn't made any recognition towards the bench to say I'm done. So we'll see if he can run it out.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I must admit, I thought it was his arm or his hand at first glance, but maybe it is a problem lower in the body, but he'll want to continue, given that opportunity has knocked for him with that injury to Nikolai Muller. Here's Bratton, and steaming forward is Joel King on the left, and he was spotted by Bratton,
Yeah,
but for once his radar is off.
Yeah, just execution of that pass.
Good first-time football by the Wanderers. They've got themselves out of the high press there, but then they've rather carelessly turned the ball over.
Grant, you're having a super 10 minutes, Ryan Grant, down that right-hand side.
Here's Bratton again. Ninkovic, who's been very tightly watched by Bacchus. They almost squeezed one through. Good stretch by Yerman. A vital one in the final analysis. Really had to make that intervention. Now Yeboah involved in a real tussle for the ball with Ninkovic. Eventually Yeboah wins out. Clipped forward by Russell. And here's Patrick Ziegler. Sydney FC were to win tonight, they would reach that magical 50-point mark for the 4th consecutive campaign. Some testament to their consistency down the last few years in the A-League. And the continuity that they've enjoyed under first Graham Arnold and then his successor Steve Corica. Just about kept in by Russell, but Wanderers might feel they'd have preferred it to have gone out. Ninkovic making progress, jabs it forwards, and Sean Evans going to bring them back.
Yep.
Ninkovic impeded.
Played the advantage. Then none accrued there, so he comes back to the original foul. Baum-Johan and Ninkovic starting to get on the ball for Sydney. Probably seen more of Baum-Johan on that right-hand side.
So another set piece for Alexander Baum-Johan. Similar sort of situation to the one he had a few minutes back. See if he can get a little bit more elevation. McGowan at the back stick, and there he was. Got to get down towards Barbarouses.
I think it's Kieran Bacchus is there, needed to be as well. A terrific header from McGowan. He wasn't favourite to win that header. Bacchus read that situation beautifully.
There's John Paul de Marini, the Wanderers coach. He and Steve Corica were teammates as players with Marconi the year the Stallions won the NSL Championship, the forerunner of the A-League back in 1993. And the scorer of the winning goal in the grand final that particular day, a certain Andrew Harper from the penalty spot.
Old Harps took the penalties as well.
He did.
Took the penalty and took all the glory. Why not?
I'll tell him you said that.
Oh, I'm sure he's listening.
I'm sure he is. Here's O'Doherty. For our overseas viewers, Andy Harper, part of our Fox Sports commentary team, of course. Now that his playing days are over, bit of space here for Jordan O'Doherty. Mitch Duke. Hugging the touchline is Daniel Georgievski. Kwame Yeboah, top of the box. Bacchus was in position. Have they delayed too long, the Wanderers? Russell. Ziegler. Bit of keep ball by the Wanderers. McGowan to switch it out towards Ziegler on the right. The use of the body by O'Doherty, and Rattray was all over him like a cheap suit. Free kick. Quickly taken. Too quickly for Mitch Duke. Bacchus has it back though. Here's Duke again. Oh, blocked off pretty blatantly by Paolo Rattray. Free kick, well within range. Going to be a booking as well for Rattray. Is it worthy of the yellow?
Not sure of the yellow, definitely a foul, no doubt about it. It got very tight, very condensed. It was pretty narrow, that attack. They went from left to right and then came through the middle, and Mitchell Duke, such a physical presence, draws the foul. Sure, a yellow card was warranted. I think if there was no foul there, I think he probably lost the ball there, Mitchell Duke, but terrific position, very central.
Well, Andrew Redmayne needs to get this wall set absolutely right. There's no Permin Schwiegler, who has been taking free kicks for them. So it looks as though Jordan O'Doherty has accepted the responsibility. O'Doherty's only scored 2 A-League goals in his entire career. Wall of 5 for Sydney FC.
Yeah, protecting the right-hand side of Redmayne's goal.
So it is Jordan O'Doherty, and it's straight down the throat of Redmayne, who got his angles absolutely spot on. It's been a lively opening half an hour. Not an awful lot of goalmouth action, Robbie, but that's not to say that it's been dull by any stretch.
Well, there has been quite a bit in the middle third, but I tell you, some good football, some one-touch football played by both sides.
Dylan McGowan getting goal side of Costa Barbarouses. Georgievski with Bratton snapping away at his heels, but he finds a gap for O'Doherty. Now with Duke.
And a real good pace to the game. You can see intensity. No fans here, but you can tell it's a derby, how much it means to these players.
It's a good ball by Simon Cox. Georgievski with a bit of room. Fires it in low, and McGowan steers it clear. Well defended. And Grant prevents the corner.
Didn't look like he was a favourite to do that.
Throw in taken. Duke, good use of the body. Perfectly legal as well, only partly away by Wilkinson. Back with Georgievski. Yerman wants a bit of movement up ahead. They'll switch the play towards Ziegler on the right. Now Cox centrally, just outnumbered by a combination of Bratton and Barbarouses, and steadied down by Ninkovic for Sydney.
That's well, good defence from Sydney. Positioning's very good. These Wanderers were probing there. They got Centre halves nice and close to each other, and the fullbacks tucked in. It's very difficult to play between them.
Win tonight for the Wanderers would take them back into the top 6 at the expense of Western United. They would have a game in hand, which they play on Monday in Perth. Part of a double header on Monday, also featuring Newcastle and Melbourne City. There's the As Live ladder. A draw would keep them out of the top 6 as it stands. Here's O'Doherty. Georgievski brought into the play again. He's seen a lot of the ball at the moment, and he's earned another corner off Grant.
Yeah, we've certainly seen more of Georgievski on that left-hand side than we have of Tate Russell on the right-hand side. So
sent off, of course, in the last derby, Daniel
Yes.
Georgievski, and famously had a bit of a set-to with Steve Corica in the tunnel at Jubilee Stadium after the full-time whistle. And this is his first game back after serving that suspension. Here's O'Doherty's corner, latest in the series, but Redmayne out to gather safely.
yeah, with set pieces against Redmayne, they've got to be on the money, because anything that's overhit, he comes for every time, Redmayne. He really commands his penalty box.
2 years a Western Sydney Wanderer, of course. Andrew Redmayne played in a grand final for them back in 15-16. And was really the make-weight in the deal that took Vedran Janjetovic to the Wanderers. Funny how football turns out, isn't it? Janjetovic now in the shadows, really, at the Wanderers, and Redmayne, a full Socceroo. Here's Ninkovic. Little drop of the shoulder, plays it into a nice area. Barbarouses, good save, Lopar. Tapping though for Adam Le Fondre. And Sydney take the lead in the 35th minute. Take a bow, Adam Le Fondre, as he claws one back on Jamie McLaren in that golden boot race, with just his second goal in 5 games. And Sydney FC hit the front.
Well, what a super pass from Ninkovic into Barbarouses, who's able to swivel, get his shot on. Lopar could only parry it. And Le Fondre, instead of just ball watching, he follows in. And that's what you've got to bank on. That's what goal scorers do. Might only happen a few times that it palms out and comes to him, but he gambles and he gets a tap in at the back post. But what about this pass from Ninkovic? Faces forward, checks, and picks out Barbarouses, who swivels maybe through the legs of Yerman. And Le Fondre doing what a good number 9 does, follows in and gets his tap in.
And Adam Le Fondre with that touch of sarcasm, with his round of applause to the end of the stadium where the RBB would normally be. He is now 10 from 10 in away matches for Sydney FC this season. Quite extraordinary. And here's Barbarouses, who had a big part to play in that goal, forcing the save out of Daniel Lopar. Not sure you can attribute too much blame to the goalkeeper. It was at full tilt was Lopar. Here's Georgievski. Can the Wanderers mount an immediate response? Up in the air it loops for Duke, only partly away by Retre. And Bacchus didn't get hold of it at all.
He's had a few of those chances, hasn't he? Balls that have come out in and around the edge of the penalty area. It's probably 3 of them now. It hasn't looked likely on any of those occasions. He seems to have a wild swing in it, and maybe if he just concentrates more on the technique, take a little bit off it, try and get a clean connection.
Well, it's taken Sydney FC nearly 3.5 hours of football this season, but finally they've got a goal against the Wanderers. And all that after the Wanderers really had made a very bright start. Here's Duke out towards Georgievski.
Wanderers have still had plenty of energy. But what Sydney have done is they've been able to get Bomyohan and Ninkovic onto the ball.
That's a nice angle pass for Georgievski. Can he get around Grant? Easier said than done. Socceroos #1 right fullback. is Patrick Ziegler. McGowan. Didn't quite work out for Mitch Duke, for which he apologises.
It's that front third. The Wanderers just haven't had that little bit extra, that cutting edge. They've plenty of the ball in the middle of the park. Plenty of good passages of play in that area. That's what makes the difference at this point, is that area of the pitch.
Simon Cox going in full-blooded on Ryan Grant. Ryan McGowan had front position on him on the follow-up. And the ball has stayed in play on that far side for Yeoman. Jordan O'Doherty. Swept wide by Duke for Ziegler, and further forward towards Tate Russell. In towards Duke at the near post. And Duke again on the follow-up after Yeboah was unable to get a shot away. Rattray gets distance on the clearing header. And eventually further clear by Joel King. Looked promising though for a moment, that for Western Sydney. Just wouldn't quite sit for Kwame Yeboah, nor Mitch Duke. Look at Bam Johan go, trying to close down Yerma, but he's not been able to do so. And he finds Georgievski expertly down the left. Now Cox, little cutback will eventually fall for Mitch Duke. He has to drive back outside the penalty area. Finds Russell on the angle, looping cross, away by Grant, retrieved by Bacchus. Squared up by Cox, Mitch Duke. Sydney trying to stand firm. It's Tate Russell. Maybe looking to fire it into that top right-hand corner. One back by Russell again, ahead of Lafondra. Sydney sat very deep. Can Russell find the angle? Not quite. It will be a corner though.
Well, you have to applaud the defending and the pressure from the Wanderers. Intense pressure there. Went left, went right. Cox was involved. Duke just looking for an opening to get a strike on goal, but Sydney brave in their defending.
So another corner for the Wanderers. Their fifth, Jordan O'Doherty. And there's a foul in there before Matt Yerman got his shot off. Luke Bratton feeling the full weight of it. Chance for a little breather, and it's been that sort of a first half, Robbie. It's been
terrific.
A great tempo, great rhythm to the contest.
Yeah, they both had really good passages of play in the middle of the park. That's a good ball from Doherty, and foul on Bratton. Wasn't much in it, but they get away with it. And Sydney have just found that moment, haven't they? In the penalty box with a super ball from Ninkovic.
Oh, Andrew Redmayne slip sliding on the greasy surface. I did mention that it had been heavily watered pre-game, and Andrew Redmayne's just checking the studs as to whether he's got the right boots on for the occasion. Completely lost his feet. Here's Russell. Gets away from Lafondra. Cox looking for the return ball, which wasn't really on. It's a good retrieval though by Cox. Really determined play by the Irish striker. Bacchus held up by Bratton. Ninkovic, as Sydney looked to launch a counter. Barbarousis off on his bike. Can Bam Johan find him? He can. Lafondra breaking towards the penalty box. Bam Johan to steer it in towards him. Partly away by Ziegler. Bam Johan again, too high for Lafondra. That's the danger Sydney FC pose on that counter-attack. And the Wanderers aren't out of the woods yet. Squared up by Rattray, gets it back off Ninkovic. Wide left is King. Ninkovic again. Ryan Grant to set himself and drive it with power. And Lopar happy to see that one fade away.
Yeah, but he's still not happy that he's got that time to get his head up and hit this ball. I tell you, hit it sweetly as well. No bend. But that's been the difference between the two times. Sydney, when they counter, when they get up in that front third, they just look more likely to score a goal. And of course they have got one, and they could have had another one there in that passage.
Ryan Grant, so experienced in these Sydney derby occasions, and of course you might remember he first did his ACL in a Sydney derby back in 2013. He's done it again since. He's done remarkably well to recover from those two very serious knee problems. Not only become a regular for Sydney FC, but also for his country as well. And arguably, Robbie, one of the most consistent players in the competition.
No doubt about that. You know, we've said for a couple of years now that his game has gone to another level in respect to his technique, and he's more calm these days.
Here he is again, nipping it ahead of Georgievski, who's now giving chase. Bratton to switch first time. Pings it out towards King. Ninkovic, Serbian playmaker with that low centre of gravity and exquisite touch on the ball. Retre. Back they'll come through Wilkinson. And we're into the last minute of a really watchable first half of football here at Bankwest Stadium. And there's the commentator's curse, Robbie.
No, but I think you're right, and the players are to be commended on the quality of this first half under very difficult circumstances.
In total, we've had 14 shots on goal, just 6 of those on target. Both teams with very good attacking intent.
And that's overhit from Yeboah, and since he took that knock, it just hasn't been the same. He had a terrific first 15 minutes, Yeboah, but since he took that knock, he just hasn't been looked comfortable.
Looks as though he's still feeling it. I wonder whether he might be reappearing for the second half as we move into first half stoppage time.
But with Tate Russell there, I thought the ball was already out.
It's out already, mate. Your fringe getting your head, huh? You're getting your eyes, your
I think John Paul de Marini agreed with you. He's just said to the linesman, did your hair get in your eyes? That's to
Bit of
Owen
sarcasm.
Goldrick, and you'll see when we give you a shot of Owen just how sarcastic John Paul was being. Not very nice.
And John Paul can't say much himself, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I'm
You
with
are
him.
so right,
I
Robbie.
did think that that ball was out, but anyway,
Oh dear.
almost makes me laugh how much a throw-in decision can cause, what sort of drama it can cause.
Well, no more dramas for the first half, but plenty to talk about. Really good first half. That's Adam Lafondra's goal. The difference, it came on 35 minutes. Daniel Lopar palming away the effort from Costa Barbarouses, and Lafondra on hand, as he so often is, to tap home the rebound for his 17th of the season. So that's the way it is at Bankwest at half-time. It is Western Sydney Wanderers 0, Sydney FC 1. Let's go down to Adam Peacock.
Simon, thank you. Before we get to a break on Matchday Saturday, brought to you by Under Armour, a look at the key moment in that first half, Mark Bosnich. The goal, again, Lafondra doing what great strikers do, and that's being alive in the box.
Yeah, great reaction. We spoke about the game, about Western Sydney Wanderers making sure they don't get too deep, and here you see, once again, just dropping that little bit too far, right towards the end. It's only human nature for players as they get tired to actually drop deep, but when you do that, it opens up all types of situations. And the other thing as well with Matt German, and that's one thing for defenders that I always used to say to defenders in front, when you do go, if you're on one side, just stay on that side. Don't open your legs, because invariably if the shot goes between the legs, it's very difficult for the goalkeeper. It was a good save by Lopar, but the rebound goes straight in.
All the highlights after the break here are live on Fox Sports around the country, and wherever you're watching around the world, hopefully you're enjoying the Sydney Derby. All the highlights in a moment with Bozza. As we go to the break, don't forget the Spielberg Marathon on the way on Foxtel Movies.
legendary films that taught us to see things differently.
That is power.
Foxtel celebrates 50 years of Spielberg, now showing on Foxtel Movies Hits and Watch on Demand.
Welcome back to the Sydney Derby. Half-time, Sydney FC have finally scored a goal in a derby this season. It came through Adam Lafondra, who has scored so many. JP Di Marini with a bit to do at half-time in terms of turning things around. His side, Western Sydney Wanderers, has played some okay stuff, putting high pressure on Sydney FC early in that half, but as it went on, class prevailing with the definitive moment so far, halfway through, 1-0 Sydney over Western Sydney. Welcome back to Bankwest Stadium. Adam Peacock alongside Mark Bosnich, and more on the goal. So with Ninkovic and his role so far, have you noticed anything different about the way he's operating tonight, or is it same old, because he was the key pass into what set up the goal?
No, pretty much same old at the start, but I must say Western Sydney Wanderers had some great success at the beginning of the game. I thought they were a better team for the majority of the first half, to be fair. Sydney intermittently started to play their football, but one thing that Ninkovic does really, really good is that he sizes up the situation in the game. If certain things aren't working, then he will take up different positions. This is a position that we come very, very familiar with Ninkovic, him on that side and Birmingham on the other. There you are. Look at LaFondra as well. I wonder if he would have done
Do you rate
that. Yeah, I do rate it. I wonder if he would have done that if the RBB was there. Anyway, like I said to you, what he does very, very well is he adapts to the situation. A lot of times he was taking up a lot of different positions and then going back to the position that we've become accustomed to, and that was it right there. But that all started, like I said to you, with the fact that as it was getting towards the end of half, only human nature for players. They did, for the majority of half Wanderers, keep the high line. They did drop back that little bit further, and when you do that, especially when you're in your box, it only takes something like that for that to occur, and you're down 1-0, and this is exactly what happened.
That was the Harvey Norman highlight from the first half. Having a look at some of Wanderers' good stuff with the ball, what were they doing that impressed you, boss?
Well, first and foremost, we started off from the high line. The second thing that I really like what they were doing, they started to overload one side. Okay, so a lot of teams are starting to do this in the A-League, especially recently, when Brisbane do it really, really well, and Newcastle as well, not so far off. And they overload one side, and they try to draw the opposition all down that side. And when that happens, then they go for that quick switch of play, which opens up time and space at the other end. And they're doing that very, very well. Their closing down as well was very good. There's Yeboah. He's grabbing his groin there. And for a while, I thought, well, he has to come off, but he actually stayed on. Be very interested to see whether or not he comes up for the second half. But back to that point, if you watch it very closely at him, especially down here, down the right-hand side with Tate Russell, they'll play that ball in. Players will actually come in. You know, a lot of times, you know, you get a lot of people telling you, you know, when players have the ball to spread out, which is understandable too, because you want to create time and space. But a lot of teams are now going compact one side and then having somebody turn out and play the other side, and then they've got the time and space to go. So that's what they've been doing very well for the majority of the first half, but they're still 1-0 down. And, you know, let's be, you know, brutally frank. I always say this to you as well. As much as good player I think that they have had during that first half, I can't remember really Andrew Redmayne having to make any really good saves, like fantastic saves, so to speak.
Well, he might have had a moment when he slipped over at one stage, but his back four reverted.
I've done that many a time, so I'm staying very quiet about that one.
Hey, Mitch Duke, his role so far, how have you seen it?
Yeah, look, Mitch does a lot of work wherever he's been asked to play. He's playing more like a second striker here in this particular game, so he's trying to link up. When they do that, what I was just talking about going down one side and trying to overload one side, he generally is the player from the middle that actually comes over to that side to try to make that extra man. But he's got a wonderful engine, and whatever he's asked to do, he does it, and he does it with all his heart and with 100%. He needs a little bit more in the second half, and I think Simon Cox will start to actually get into the game a little bit more as well, because he's been on the periphery, is to be a little bit more smarter with the runs and the timing of the runs, because right now at this moment in time, both of them, although, like I said, Simon's been a little bit more on the periphery, in terms of Mitch Duke, it's quite predictable exactly what he's going to do. Maybe sometimes pretend he's going to go to that side, actually hold himself and wait till there was an opportunity to make that little run either into the pockets or to the channel. What
have you made of the atmosphere that the players are playing in terms of, it feels like a birthday party without music and without noise at the moment, how they're coping with it, the tempo of the match? Very good. It started off a little bit, you know, it was sort of like it was surreal as you spoke to me, Adam, but I think they've done very well. After that was a few challenges going in, and the managers, you know, on the sideline started their shouting and all that. So I think they've done really well considering the circumstances. Off to a quick break. The second half not too far away. Sydney this close to winning another Premier's Plate. They can't absolutely wrap it up tonight, but they'll go a very long way after the gap was closed to 7 points yesterday by Melbourne City. We're back in a moment to see if Wanderers can turn it around or Sydney push on with it.
Helga? Did he call you Helga?
It's the 25th Sydney derby behind closed doors, of course, and there are 4 changes for the Western Sydney Wanderers. Patrick Ziegler returns from suspension in place of Tas Mordekoutas in defence. Keanu Bacchus replaces the suspended Pirmin Spiegler in midfield. Daniel Georgievski is back on the left after a ban. And with Nikolai Muller injured, Kwame Yeboah makes his first start since early February. Just the one change for Sydney. Alexander Baum-Johan is back in place of Anthony Caceres, who has a groin problem, to face his former club. Michael Zullo and Chris Zavella are back on the bench after long stints out with injury. So can the Wanderers make it 3 from 3 in the derbies this season? Let's find out. Our referee is Sean Evans.
JP's good to go.
Thank you.
Hello, Adam. Just in case.
Hey, JP.
Good, mate.
Hey, JP. Just checking you can hear me, JP. Can you hear me, JP? No, not yet. Thanks.
Sydney are out.
Welcome back to Bankwest Stadium. It's 1-0 to Sydney FC in the 25th Sydney derby at half-time here in Parramatta. Adam Lafondra with yet another sausage roll. It's his 17th of the season as he closes in once again on Jamie McLaren in that race for the Golden Boots. Well, what awaits us in the second 45? Western Sydney Wanderers, of course, have won the other 2 meetings between the clubs this season. Let's speak to their coach, John Paul De Marini. He's been good enough to join us. JP, thanks for your time. How do you turn this around?
For me, it's much of the same. You know, just continue with this and, you know, possibly just deliver the ball a little bit earlier. But, you know, I was really pleased on their performance in the first half. So we'll continue to do that. There's a couple of things that we've got to tweak in terms of without the ball. But all in all, I was very happy with it.
Just a quick word on Kwame Yeboah, JP. Seemed to have a bit of an injury. Is he okay? He's back out for the second half?
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. He's got no problems whatsoever. He wants to stay on and he can move, and he'll be fine for us.
Thanks, JP. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Simon. Cheers. Thanks.
Here's Georgievski, and here is Kwame Yeboah at the top of the box. Just run out of it by a combination of Baum-Johan and I think Paolo Retre. So the Wanderers, Robbie Slater, looking to start the second half as they started the first on the front foot.
Yeah, pressing high, and that was a decent, it was nearly a half chance for Yeboah, wasn't it, when he got that ball? He's looking to make just that half yard to get his shot off, but again, well defended from Sydney.
Sure, they'll have worked on that groin problem at half-time in the Wanderers' dressing rooms. He's good to go for the second 45. Wanderers looking for just their second win here at Bankwest since they defeated Sydney FC back in October in front of that capacity crowd. Although their only other win here was on their last home outing. Pretty handsome one too against Adelaide, 5-2. Yeboah trying to make progress. Held up though by Ninkovic, who doesn't shirk his defensive duty. And there he is again. But he's lost out this time, and Mitch Duke will carry it forward. And the shot cannon back off McGowan, back onto Duke. Yeah. Rather unfortunate for the Wanderers.
Yeah, the double ricochet and doesn't even get the corner, but just took a little bit of a chance there, Sydney. Ryan Grant tried to play that ball inside, and they were onto it. So, as you pointed out, Wanderers looking to set the tempo early in this second half.
7 of Mitch Duke's 11 goals this season have come here at Bankwest. And he doesn't normally need a second invitation to shoot, but Ryan McGowan well placed. having such a good season, isn't he? Big Mitch. Which earned him a recall, of course, to the Socceroos squad last year against Jordan as well. Goodness knows when the national team will play again in the current circumstances. Talking of which, we mentioned that big audience in Italy. Among them, I can tell you, the former Sydney FC chairman back in the day, Walter Bugno, who sent me a message to say he's watching from his home in Italy.
Yeah, very first chairman. First year with Dwight York.
Here's Georgievski. I'm sure Walter's enjoying things so far, maybe not for much longer. Georgievski couldn't quite keep it alive. Last appearance was in that previous Sydney derby, 28th of February, where he saw red light on for a pretty late challenge on substitute Marco Tilio, which didn't go down too well amongst the Sydney FC coaching staff. And he's back tonight.
Yeah, saw a lot of the ball in the second half. Saw more than Tate Russell, who saw a little bit of it towards the end of that first half.
Steered back by Georgievski to Lopa. Wilkinson got a bit caught betwixt and between there. That's rather wasteful from Jordan O'Doherty. Arm across, retro by Simon Cox. Easy decision for Sean Evans. Wanderers, of course, missing Pierman Schwegler in midfield, such a steadying influence for them. Serving a one-game suspension tonight. And perhaps a little bit further upfield, the other play that they've missed as well, Robbie, is Nikolai Muller, who's been in really good form in recent weeks
he's
for me.
Definitely a miss for this game.
This is Yerman. Turned back by Duke. O'Doherty. Yeboah. Mitch Duke nipped in quickly. Here's Simon Cox. And arriving was Tate Russell, looking for his second goal in 2 games, but he can't hit the target.
Yeah, I thought Simon Cox might have shot there, and he's played in Tate Russell. Mitch Duke does well, nips in front of McGowan, and this is a cross. He's not shooting there. He's trying to play that to the back post. And really, there was no one there. Cox had opened up for him.
Teed up the winner in the last derby, Tate Russell for Mitch Duke. Here is the aforementioned Duke. Bacchus turned into traffic in the shape of Barbarouses, Ninkovic, Lafondra. Infringement on Baum Johan. He really struggled to establish himself with the Wanderers last year, but much more integral to Sydney FC's lineup this time around. Barbaros is just caught coming the wrong way.
Yeah, Baum Johan trying to play it in behind Ziegler, but Barbaros checked his run, came towards the ball.
Ziegler. Good first-time ball by Cox. Russell on his bike beyond him. Little turn by Duke. Georgievski's good football this by the Wanderers, but just beyond O'Doherty. That's a pass from Georgievski.
No, but good movement from the right to the left, and O'Doherty with a late run from midfield, but well read by McGowan. Sydney have defended very well in this game.
Looking to re-establish their 10-point lead at the top, of course, after Melbourne City get it back to 7 yesterday with that 4-2 win in Gosford over the Mariners. There's Kwame Yeboah, thought about the shot. Out to Georgievski instead. Wilkinson's clearing header. Wanderers trying to keep up the pressure. Barbarouses lets it go for Grant. And that came off the hand of Daniel Georgievski. Two number 5s. There's Nikolai Muller out with hamstring tightness tonight. Second top scorer for the club this season with 5 and 3 assists to boot.
Yeah, and he's operated primarily where Yeboah's come in tonight, of course, and you know, they've certainly missed his burst from the middle of the park.
A bit of space here for Costa Barbarouses, but he's overcooked that one. And Lopar was looking for the quick release. They get out of that little hole really well, the Wanderers, and Tate Russell will gallop forward. Duke is the option wide right. Ferried back in field towards Bacchus. Now Yerman. Cox. Ziegler. And there was, I think, a foul in there, but advantage played, and Tate Russell will continue. Beaten away by Redmayne at the near post. And that's clumsy by Yerman on Lafondra.
Yeah, and lets him off the pressure. Yerman trying to keep the pressure on.
Let's go down to Adam Peacock. Adam.
Good line from Adam Lafondra in the pre-game huddle just before kick-off in the first half. Everyone huddled around getting psyched up for this massive Sydney derby, and Adam Lafondra just throws in a cheeky, come on boys, let's get off to a really good start and silence this crowd. Don't let them get on top of us. And Alex Wilkinson, by the way, you don't really realise during a game how much talk he does and how much berating of the players around him if things don't go well. He is in absolutely everything, chief organiser.
He's one of the most experienced players out there. Sydney have got a free kick. Yerman going through his man from behind. Alex Wilkinson. He's one of those players, as Adam rightly points out, you only really notice him when he's not there. He's just so consistent. Rarely misses a game through injury or suspension. He's yet to be booked this season, which for a central defender is extraordinary, really.
It just shows you how good he reads the game.
Yeah. That's why he wears the skipper's armband. And let's see what his teammates can do with this free kick, which Bam Johan will deliver into a really good area. That's a very good defensive header by Mitch Duke.
Mitch Duke, and yeah, it's a super ball in from Bam Johan. And Mitch Duke alive to the danger at the back post. 2 Sydney FC players there. That's great defending from the striker.
Because if you get too much on that, it can quite easily end up in an own goal. Get too little and you open the door for the players arriving behind.
Come back a little bit. Yeah. Hold the ball, hold the ball. Stay, Cox, stay.
So from a free kick to a corner for Bam Johan, in towards the near post, away by Simon Cox. And further clear by Kwame Yeboah. Joel King. Retray. Georgievski read it but couldn't control it. Ryan Grant. Good bit of keep ball from Ryan Grant, showing his experience as well. Bratton. Ninkovic. And the Wanderers, by and large, have not allowed Milos Ninkovic an awful lot of room, but the one time they did, he helped create the goal. That's the quality of the player. Here's Bam Johan. straight at Yerman. Forward by Georgievski. Steady down by McGowan. Short pass by Bratton. Down the line by Grant, but Yerman is there for the Wanderers. Backus to get things moving for the home side. There's a bit of space out wide right for Russell.
Well, the game is played at such a pace that...
Yeboah just dropping off the line, finding that little pocket. And he's managed somehow to wriggle through. Scooped up in the air by Wilkinson. Sydney under pressure. Bratton trying to sort things out and does so calmly. That's really well played.
Well, it didn't look like he had any chance of getting out of there.
Barbarouses really should have played that first time towards Lafondra, and a counter was very much on for Sydney FC. Cox, Georgievski, Duke, turning clear of Bratton and firing in the cross, steered away by Wilkinson, nodded down by O'Doherty, further square by Cox, but given away by Backus. Intelligent ball by Rattray.
I don't know how much ground he's covered tonight, Mitchell Duke, but he has been everywhere, not just in an attacking sense, but the first to close down as well on that front line.
All to no avail so far for Western Sydney. And it's the Sky Blues instead who'll move forward with Ryan Grant here on the right. Barbarouses makes the run. The intention was the back heel for Lafondra. Didn't quite execute. Now Duke. That's a good ball by the captain. Take Russell on the right. Simon Cox might still drop for the former Southend United striker, not quite. And Ninkovic back in almost the left fullback position to start things moving for Sydney FC.
Well, there's little happening in both final thirds, but the middle of the park, the pace is
frenetic.
Little time on the ball.
We played an hour in Parramatta. If it stays this way, at the end of the 90s, Sydney will be just 2 wins away from securing what would be their 4th premiership crown, which would put them one behind the all-time leader list, South Melbourne. Records, of course, between the old National Soccer League and the Hyundai A-League merged a few years ago. Jordan O'Doherty, meantime, going through Bam Johan, which gives Sydney a free kick. There's the As Live ladder. 10-point gap would be re-established if it stays this way. Sydney back in action on Wednesday night at Suncorp against Brisbane. Almost have one hand on the trophy if they win that game as well. Here's Bam Johan's free kick, and Lopar out together cleanly. Again, he wanted a quick release, Daniel Lopar, but there was really no options available for him. Mind you, the throw's not the best either. Ninkovic. The Wanderers still yet to put any real pressure on Andrew Redmayne. Maybe entering the part of the game, Robbie, where John Paul de Marini might be thinking about changing things around. He does have Bruce Kamau on the bench, who's been in good form of late prior to his most recent injury. Wonder whether he's in his mind.
Oh, no doubt he'll be thinking of changes if it stays this way, but You can't fault the players for their effort and energy, but as far as troubling Andrew Redmayne, you're right, they just haven't done that.
Tell you what, that's a really good defensive header by Ryan Grant, because that was arrowing its way towards Daniel Georgievski, who was free on the left. And Grant strained every single sinew to reach that. Another little part of football that often goes unremarked.
You see Wanderers just dropping off a little bit, just taking a breather. They've pressed so high again at opening at this second half.
There's Ryan McGowan, very experienced in derby games, once scored in a Derby Cup final for Hearts against Hibs back in his days in Scotland. Is he finally going to get one over on his brother tonight, Dylan, who also played in a few Edinburgh derbies as well? Oh dear.
And straight off the boot, he knew it, didn't he? He's trying to play that to Ryan Grant, nowhere near.
Milos Ninkovic, I think that's 2 unforced errors we've seen from him tonight. It's probably doubled his seasonal total. Here's Simon Cox for the Wanderers. Jabbed out by Duke towards Georgievski. Duke wants it back. Looking to sling it in first time, but Bratton got tight on him. As O'Doherty is trying to do now on Baumjohann, and then Bratton. It's with Georgievski. Square by Bacchus. Ziegler. The switch is completed towards Russell on the right, fired towards Simon Cox, who did get on the end of it. It's still alive for Duke. And the Wanderers buzzing around the Sydney penalty area here. The curler from Georgievski. And it's just a metre or so wide at that left-hand upright.
Yeah, and he meant that. He's going for that far corner, and he's not far away. Pressure again from the Wanderers. This is a decent, that's a half chance for Cox. He gets there first. Mitch Duke keeps it alive, and look at the time for Georgievski to have a look, size it up. Just doesn't get enough bend on it. Had Redmayne beaten.
Daniel Georgievski, who played in many a Melbourne derby and quite a few F3 derbies as well during his days with the Jets. Going even further back, Bucharest derbies for Steaua against Rapid. Now playing for the club in the region where he was born, in Blacktown, and he's on the ball here. The local Western Sydney boy, it's Daniel Georgievski. Squares it up for Simon Cox, but it was a heavy first touch. And the chance disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. Now O'Doherty arriving late on Baumjohann.
Right.
Easy decision for Sean Evans, yellow card.
But that relieves the pressure on Sydney. Again, a great situation. They just didn't make the most of it. Western Sydney, and Baumjohann was off. Penetrating run right through the middle, and Doherty's late, no doubt about it.
Came off worse by the looks of it. Gets a booking to mark his 50th A-League appearance. Had almost a year out, of course, with that ACL injury. Only recently back in the Wanderers midfield. But he was a tad late on Baumjohann. There is the German again. Good win in the air by Matt Yerman, which has left Costa Barbarosas prone on the deck. Here's Kwame Yeboah. Good pressure this by the Wanderers. Georgievski's cross. Joel King underneath it. And again, look how deep Milos Ninkovic is. He's been in that position for much of the last 15 minutes. And then a foul on Lafondra by Bacchus relieves the pressure.
It's been great pressure from Wanderers. From the start of this second half, they have been on top. But like you pointed out, just haven't been able to get that final ball into the right area, the right run to make Redmayne save. Closest they come, Georgievski with that curler.
can't fault their aggression, the Wanderers. All those second half fouls committed by the home side. So anxious to get back on terms. But Sydney FC holding firm.
And Redmayne on the ball, very static. And anything in the air.
Barbarouses. Turn back towards Bratton. Wilkinson, little glance over the shoulder just to see where Simon Cox was positioned. King. Square of him is Barbarouses. Now Baum-Johann. Baum-Johann to have a dig, and it flicked off the head of Yerman.
Yeah, flash past that near post. I mean, misses by quite some distance, but hit that with power, and it, because there's so much power, and it's flashed past that near post. Baum-Johann gets up, not under pressure. Flicks off the head of Yerman. Sydney with a rare incursion into Wanderers territory.
Let's see if they can make the most of it. They've won just their third corner of the game. Floated in by Baum-Johann towards the near post. And it was helped on by Barbarouses. Ryan McGowan to retrieve at the back post. Joel King with the up and under, but behind it goes. Had a breakthrough campaign, hasn't he, Joel King? Young boy from Shell Harbour on the south coast of New South Wales. Good spin from Mitch Duke to take him away from trouble. Bacchus, O'Doherty. They'll try and go centrally, and Yeboah fires one in. Right into the unmentionables, I think, of Ryan McGowan, who's now underneath this high ball. Talk about putting your body on the line, Robbie.
Don't think you have much choice. That's good play from Bratton. Composure, under pressure, changes the point of the attack.
Carried out by Ninkovic, and it was looking for the return off King. We're into the last 20 minutes in Parramatta. Game that has really bobbed along in terms of tempo. Perfect conditions for this sort of game. Steve Corica is pondering a change. I can see Harry van der Sarg is stripped and ready to go off the bench for the visitors. And also Nick Sullivan is going to be first cab off the rank for the Wanderers. So we're at that point in the contest where the coaches feel as though they have to try and make a move. Here's Tate Russell on the right, and there's a bit of an arm wrestle between Grant and Duke. Baum-Johann needs to clear his lines quick smart really, and does so very coolly indeed. Now King looking for the run of Rattray, who's made a lung-bursting run through midfield. Simon Cox. Yerman. Left a touch short, the return by Duke. Yerman was determined to win it, and then immediately turns it over. They got it back though, Western Sydney Wanderers. There was a foul by Grant. Advantage played though by Sean Evans. Yeboah still down on the back of that. Grant steals it on the blind side of Duke. Look at the commitment from both teams. No fans, but this is derby action, all right. Simon Cox trying to find the space, away by McGowan, but wide right is Russell, and the cross is deflected behind for a Wanderers corner.
And all the pressure, all the play coming from the Wanderers, so much energy, and Sydney flat-footed. Ryan Grant bursting out there, Lafondra dispossessed easily. And it's all hands to the pump for Sydney at the moment.
Change for the Wanderers. Jordan O'Doherty, who Just pulled up a little lame after that foul on Baum-Johan. Takes his leave. And Nick Sullivan is with us, like-for-like change. One midfielder for another. Harry van der Sark will be on next break in play for Sydney FC. Sullivan, the youngster who started both the previous derbies earlier on in the season, off the bench today. See if he can have an impact. Here's the corner. Yeah, swinger. Way by King, driven back in by Keanu Bacchus. And Barbarouses gets distance on the clearance. They'll reset through Tate Russell here. Charged down by Barbarouses, who will then try and apply pressure on the fullback.
And Western Sydney have done well. In spite of that pace of Barbarouses and Lafondra, that back three have squeezed, you know, up towards the halfway line, so there's not much distance in between. That's why they've dominated this second half. And Bacchus, and before him, Doherty, very close to that front line as well. It's pushed Sydney back. Tate Russell, Georgievski very high.
Was there a slight nudge there by Wilkinson? Wanderers felt as though there was. Sean Evans disagreed. It's a good stretch by Bratton. So difficult to keep the ball, such as the pressure on it. Bacchus. Simon Cox. Georgievski, oh, heavy touch. Maybe just took his eye off it for a split second.
Yeah, I think he's thinking of his next move, if you want, and just took his eye off the ball. But Sydney, whereas in the first half, you know, got a lot of joy out of counter-attacks, they haven't had that in the second half because they've squeezed the lines, not allowed Ninkovic and Baum-Johan that space to turn and face them as much.
Well, there's no space for Baum-Johan now because he's about to be withdrawn in favour of Harry van der Sark, who's about to make his derby debut. The 20-year-old from Narrabeen. And he'll start in that more advanced role, which he did against John Book Motors in the Asian Champions League. He's more than capable of playing that position in front of Ryan Grant.
Got himself a goal, I think, against the Mariners as well.
Yep.
Late on.
Steve Corica admitting pre-game that with this busy schedule, some of those youngsters are going to get more opportunities. The likes of Van der Sarg and Marco Tilio's on the bench as well this evening. Didn't quite go where Nick Sullivan wanted it to go for the Wanderers. Time started to tick away for the home side into the last quarter of an hour. Yerman looking for an option. None really presented itself. McGowan back for Yerman again. Yerman just holds out his arms as if to say, well, what could I do?
Well, he ran out of options. He had two blue shirts, and the only option was down the line, so he's looking for a runner into that space, which more often than not in this second half they've had.
That's a good ball by Barbarouses to open up the space for Harry van der Sarg to drive into. Well, Lafondra is saying, hey, play me in. But van der Sarg went on his own.
Yeah, probably the wrong decision, but, you know, the kid's seen a bit of glory there and he's gone. You know, difference here, he hits it, flies in top corner. But, yeah, he should have played that one across. It's a rare opportunity for Sydney.
Off the chest of Bratton. Van der Sarg again. Grant outside him. There was a challenge from behind by Yerman, but we're good to go on. Forward it goes off Lopar, chested down by Cox. No let up in this frantic tempo. Georgievski the option wide left for Cox, which he uses. Short as your bow. Top of the box is Nick Sullivan trying to create the angle, which he did. Charged down though by King. Laid back by Russell towards Siegler. Now McGowan. Backus for Georgievski. Bit of time. Might have gone first time for the cross. Invited forward again by Backus. Better angle for the Wanderers. And only partly away by Redmayne, and then further clear by King. It's Nick Sullivan who sets himself nicely, and then Simon Cox just couldn't stretch far enough. Still alive for the Wanderers, Georgievski. Scooped away by McGowan. Sydney dig it in, trying to protect that slender lead given to them by Adam Lafondra. As long ago as the 35th minute.
Well, tremendous pressure, and they just can't get that ball to sit to one of those Wanderers players, and it just so often falls at the feet of a Sydney FC player, and they're that close. I mean, John Paul Demarine could ask nothing more of his players, apart from something in that front third more conclusive, as they've bossed this second half.
Here's Ninkovic just gliding away from Sullivan. Tate Russell. Cox too heavy for Yeboah. Started life with the Wanderers really well, Simon Cox, but maybe just a little bit off his game in the last few weeks. Bruce Kamau being ready by the Wanderers. Trent Bahaja, I can tell you, is going to be on next break in play as Sydney FC second change as well. Look at all those balls into the Sydney FC penalty area. Second half by the Wanderers. But how many saves has Andrew Redmayne actually had to make? Not many, if any, as the old ads went in season 1 of the A-League. Here's Georgievski. Grant in the road. Georgievski again too deep.
No on back post either. And again, they get the block, Sydney, and you can only say that they do it so well. The Wanderers have thrown everything at them.
So here's the Sydney change. Costa Barbarouses, who I guess technically claims an assist for what is at the moment the match winner. Shot saved by Daniel Lopar before it was tucked away by Adam Lafondra. He takes his leave. Trent Bahaja replaces him, and Tate Russell has been withdrawn for the Wanderers, and Bruce Kamau is on in his stead. So 2 speed merchants injected into the game late on.
And Kamau just takes the place of Tate Russell out on that right-hand side, and he'll look to push forward at every opportunity.
Doesn't look best pleased, does he, that he's been withdrawn, Tate Russell. You never want to leave it the scene of a derby early. Yeah, there was a nudge by Lafondra on McGowan.
Yeah, just as the ball was around, just gave him a nudge.
There's Bruce Kamau, who, as I mentioned at the top of the game, is one of those players who's looking to become just the second in history to score in both a Sydney and a Melbourne derby. Did score a derby winner for Melbourne City against Victory back in 2017. Only Dario Vidicic has done it before, scoring for City against Victory and for the Wanderers against Sydney. And he's involved in the action on that far side, but losing out to Joel King.
Offside position, Trent Bahaja he's got caught ball watching. He's got to get him back himself into position, and here it comes back again.
Kamau goes for the early cross, or that deflection might favour the Wanderers. It loops in. Kwame Yeboah, I'm not sure he knew too much about it, but he won't care about that. Andrew Redmayne left grasping thin air, and the Wanderers are all square.
Again, they get a bit of luck, but it's luck they deserve on their second half performance. Sydney have been deep the whole of this second half, and this is what happens when you're so deep. You get into a position, Kamau with a positive run. There's the touch there. Big deflection. He's clearly onside, and Yeboah gets himself a goal. And they deserve it.
I don't think there can be much debate about that, and Bruce Kamau has an immediate impact off the bench. His cross caused a little bit of panic in the Sydney FC defensive ranks, and Kwame Yeboah was the rather fortunate profiteer of that. Just his third goal of the season, and what a vital one it is for the Wanderers. His first goal in 10 matches in the red and black. And on balance, Robbie, as you say,
yeah,
Sydney can have few complaints.
No, they've bossed the whole second half. The Wanderers, and they got their little bit of luck. And what happens now? Do the Wanderers go on with it? They've obviously looked the more likely, as we've said.
Here's Adam Lafondra picking up the loose ball. Bruce Kamau chasing back. Good intervention by the substitute to help out Patrick Ziegler. Let's quickly go down to Adam Peacock again.
Thank you, Simon. I've got a different vantage point at the moment as Alex Wilkinson chases that back, and Mitch Duke holds his hand up. He's getting a bit tired, Mitch, but pretty lonely back here and behind the RBB. I'll pay respect to the RBB and not stand on their turf while the game's going on. There's a ball girl here. There's a couple scattered around the crowd, but it's so eerie back here. I do know that a lot of Wanderers fans are at families, gatherings, and enjoying themselves, so hopefully they enjoyed that goal and made some noise for the neighbours.
Who do you sing for, Adam?
No one, totally neutral. I'm not an idiot. I'll walk out of the far out and cop it. Yeah, no, totally neutral. So I'm down
Good
the line.
Stuff. Thanks, Adam. Well, John Paul de Marini looking a little bit more comfortable with what's just transpired, and certainly his team has given their absolute all in this second half. He'll be frustrated they've turned the ball over there, though. Bacchus and Yeboah involved in a game of after you, sir. Now Duke challenging Wilkinson, and Duke has won out ahead of Bratton for the scraps, and it's Kamau on the right, and the Wanderers pressing again. Held up briefly by Wilkinson. It's not the best release, and Sullivan couldn't make up the ground.
What a chance there for Bruce Kamau just to slide that across the face of goal. They had two players, Cox and Yeboah, waiting for that cross.
I'll tell you what, Robbie, you mentioned in the first half how much consternation throw-ins cause. There's nobody inside the stadium in terms of fans. They made the noise of about 5,000, the two benches there. Who'd be a referee? Into the last 5 minutes. Here's Lafondra. He might have thought his goal was going to prove to be the winner. Not so. Ninkovic. Trying to angle the ball in behind McGowan, but he was wise to that. Back heel by Ziegler. Kamau is steaming down the right and saying, give the ball to me, and Bacchus now obliges, and Sydney are slow to respond. Yeboah in position. Oh, it's a terrible ball by Kamau. Deary.
Yeah, great position, great run from him. And numbers in the box as well, just waiting for any kind of delivery. Well, not any kind, because they got any kind, but it wasn't the kind they needed.
Down the line by Grant for Lafondra, but Georgievski too strong. The Wanderers have really got the bit between their teeth here. Mo Adam is going to be their third and final change presently, but they've got good field position here through Daniel Georgievski on the left. The cross is steered away, though, by Retro. They want the 3 points, the Wanderers. They want to be back in the top six tonight.
They're the ones looking the more likely. That there's no doubt.
Van der Sarg. Solid challenge. Real central defenders tackle that from Matt Yerman.
Yeah, and that's a lesson for a young player. You don't have that much time on the ball.
Sydney are going to make their third and final change shortly as well. Michael Zullo is going to be introduced for them. Meantime, Nick Sullivan Finds a pocket of space for Cox. It's still Simon Cox.
Oof.
Straight at Redmayne.
And he's unlucky. He's unlucky it goes straight because the idea is right, and the way he moved quick feet to make that half a yard, trying to angle that across the goalkeeper.
Van der Sark down the line. Trent Bahaja almost gave it up. Now he can try and use his speed, but you still need the physical presence to get past Dylan McGowan, and he was having none of that.
Well, you need to take an extra touch first and then use his speed, but McGowan, all the experience.
Here's Kamau again. Bacchus needs Kamau to go down the line, really. Instead darts in field and will try and find Georgievski, but left it a touch short. Van der Sark couldn't link up with Bahaja, and the Wanderers will continue their forward pressure. They look the likelier of the two.
Oh, by far.
Here's Kamau. Can he find better quality? No. Cannon's out of play off Joel King. Here's that change for both teams. We're going to see the introduction of Mo Adam for the Wanderers goal scorer, Kwame Yeboah. Good return to first team action for Yeboah. And for Sydney FC, it's a like-for-like change. Michael Zullo is going to replace Joel King, who'll wander off behind Andrew Redmayne's goal. And Zullo's got an awful long way to go before he can get in position. He's there now. Well, given the circumstances, Robbie Slater, this has been a terrific derby.
Yeah, and a great reaction from the Wanderers in this second half. Yeah, and they weren't bad in the first half. Sydney just had that little bit more quality and looked more likely on the counter.
Square by Georgievski. Simon Cox might open up for him here. Oh. Again, probably got caught between two decisions there, and Zullo gets a bit fortunate. Nick Sullivan to drive back towards the Sydney FC goal. Adam threads the needle. Georgievski under pressure from Grant. But Sydney FC having to really dig in here to protect the point.
Well, Simon Cox should have shot, definitely.
Still the Wanderers come. Here's Mohamed Adam. Shot deflected. Oh, and Redmayne was worried enough to make the dive. It's going to be a Wanderers corner, and we're into stoppage time as of now. 4 minutes to be added.
No, you're certainly concerned, Redmayne, because he's dived at full stretch. Mo Adam, nice and positive. Comes off Alex Wilkinson. We'll have work to do here. Mitch Duke, watch out for him from set pieces. Of course, you've got the big ones coming up. McGowan, Yerman. There'll be a lot of pressure here. Need good delivery. Keep it away from Redmayne. They're the three they'll be looking for.
Nick Sullivan needs to find the requisite quality for the Wanderers.
Too close.
Too close to Redmayne. Could there be a chance for Sydney to win it? Trent Bahaja, of course, has pace, but goodness me, he needed a lot better direction on the release from Redmayne than that. And yet again, the Wanderers have asked some pretty probing questions of Steve Corica's team. And they might feel a point is not a bad outcome, if indeed that's what they leave with. They're not over the line yet. Robbed by Luke Bratton was Nick Sullivan. Into the second minute of the 4 to be added. Outside of the boot from Bratton, not quite for Bahaja. Simon Cox for the Wanderers.
Yeah, he's just dropped off the front line to allow Mo Adam to play up next to Mitchell Duke. To be fair, Mitchell Duke's been everywhere tonight.
Duke again. It's a clever ball, and Kamau will run it down. Faced by Zullo. Top of the box is Bacchus, but it's too close to Redmayne. Once again. Long ball forward by Grant, and it might reach Bahaja here. Ziegler with the intervention.
Yeah, Bahaja's he's got to be stronger there. He's clearly in front of Ziegler. He's just got to get his body in front. And the ball comes straight back.
John Paul de Marini, I'm sure, will be absolutely delighted with the shift that his team has put in the second half. They have really taken the game to Sydney FC. Not for the first time this season, and they might still win it. So too, of course, might Sydney. Here's Ninkovic. He's trying to draw the contact out of Kamau, but he went down rather easily, Ninkovic. And then Sullivan in the collision and gets the decision, along with Lafondra. It's virtually the first time we've paused for breath, Robbie, in this second half.
Virtually. And he cops one as he falls on the side of his head, Lafondra. It's going to be okay. You just stop the momentum of the Wanderers going forward.
Well, a point will take Sydney FC 8 clear of Melbourne City in second. City have the chance to put a bit more pressure on them again on Monday when they travel to Newcastle. Perth, Western United on the same night. It's been a tough night at the office for Sydney FC on the back of a tough afternoon for their W League side, who lost the grand final earlier on today to Melbourne City. Congratulations to City, Rado Vidicic and his team. 4th championship for them. Here we're into the 5th minute of stoppage time. Maybe one more chance. Look at the watch from Sean Evans. It's all on this, really, for the Wanderers. In it goes by Ziegler. And that might just be that. And that is confirmed by Sean Evans. There is to be no clean sweep for the Wanderers. But they will end the season unbeaten against their cross-city rivals, who dropped points for just the 5th time this season. Adam Lafondra giving the Sky Blues the lead with a first half goal. But Kwame Yeboah, on his first appearance in the red and black since the 2nd of February. Such a good fortune about the equaliser. But on balance, the Wanderers certainly deserved it. Maybe they will feel even more. In the end, they have to settle for a point apiece. Western Sydney Wanderers 1, Sydney FC 1.
So Wanderers do it again to an extent against Sydney FC and take points away from the league leaders. And it's 2 weeks in a row now that they haven't taken all 3 points. So unusual for Sydney FC because they've been so dominant throughout. But Wanderers, a win and a draw. And Mark Bosnich, on the basis of that second half, they might be thinking later on tonight, why not 3 points? Because they dominated that second 45 minutes.
That they did, Adam. And like I said, although the first half ebbed and flowed, I thought they shaded the first half as